Accra, Ghana, the gateway to West Africa, a thriving, modern and safe metropolis with the warmest people in the world, and the home of Sleek Garments Export Limited. Sleek Garments Export Limited is a world-class manufacturer of high-quality fashion and industrial work garments. With competitive prices using a skilled workforce, superior raw materials, and advanced social standards, we are the preferred garment manufacturer and exporter in Ghana. We have a solid reputation for sound financial management and superior customer-oriented services in the vibrant textile and apparel industry. Our commitment to using the resources available to us to meet our obligation to our communities, our stakeholders, and the environment in which we operate is legendary. Come do business with us at Sleek Garments Export Limited in the rising creative garment industry with the thriving opportunities and the warmest people in the world. Sleek Garments Export Limited. Our creativity, our factory, welcoming by nature at the gateway to West Africa.
Yesterday, as I listened to the CEOs of Exim Bank, Free Zones, and GIPC, that's the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, on which board I serve, I find myself bursting with excitement. The clothing industry's success in Asian countries is a result of partnership with their governments. Ghana's definitely has the support of this government. I believe that I'm a woman who makes wise decisions. I went into the garments and textile industry, as I said, 4 decades ago, because I would have been a very troublesome employee. I remember getting an order sometime in the 90s, and I couldn't find a bank to lend me money. So what did I do? I marched to the castle, which was then the seat of government, and declared that I had an appointment with the president. So I was given a seat, and whoever was at the reception must have passed on the message to the president, whom, out of curiosity, agreed that I had an appointment. He wanted to see who this person was. So I go out there and I give my story, and immediately there was a phone call to the Ministry of Finance at the time. That's over 2 decades ago. And lo and behold, I did get a facility that was only reserved for government institutions. But what happened was I was able to pay back in 2 months. I made sure that I delivered. They were my designs, 4 of them, in batiks of all fabrics, which meant they were handmade, dependent on the weather. I had to get creative, working with some textile companies to actually do the base design, base dyeing for me, and then the actual printing. But we delivered 10,000 garments of my own creation to the US market for Pier 1 imports in 2 months. And it opened the doors for private sector to now access funding from this facility. The CEOs of the agencies I've mentioned might agree with me that I am troublesome, but that's just a joke. Mr. Addo is not here, but I'm one of those who went into this industry because of my God-given talent, my passion for fashion, my belief in the fact that this is a good area of investment, of business, and it's been 40 years. It was also an avenue for me to earn guaranteed good income for myself and for my children. My daughter is here. For the past 12 years, she has been our operations director. She holds a degree in business administration and finance and an MBA project management. My son works with a tech company in Silicon Valley. He's helping us design online shops, not just for sleek garments, but to market Ghanaian designs, textiles, and so on. And also, I've always had, as you saw in the video, a keen interest to impact on the lives of others, especially women. My parents were both philanthropists, and I always say it's in my DNA. Now, this is an industry that will never die. It has its ups and downs, but I must tell you all, I don't have any regrets. It's one of the largest industries in the world. It has helped industrialize the economies of countries like the UK, like the US, like China. It's a pillar to drive Ghana's economic transformation. Because it's labor intensive, we can create jobs for our young ones. When we started Sleek Garments Export Limited, well, of course, my first business was Sleek Fashion, which was registered in 1979. But for Sleek Garments Export Limited, we needed more labor, we needed more workers, and I have to tell you all that it actually began for me here in the UK. I was here in 1982, and at the time I had started Sleek Fashion, but I wanted something bigger, and that's me. I like to think bigger, outside the box. So I decided on my own volition to visit some textile factories here and see how it was done. And that was in 1982. And at the time, I was holding fashion shows here. My brother, Nora Bannerman, who is a renowned musician, acted as my manager. He has no idea about the fashion industry. And he used to help me get models from modeling schools here in the UK. And we would organize fashion shows and promote Ghanaian textile. It was mainly Ghanaian African prints, which I converted into fashion items. And we would hold fashion shows, and the impact was amazing. So, job creation, it was a foreign exchange earner. It was one that still contributes significantly to Ghana's GDP. Industry is not new to Ghana. And as I made reference to the 1970s, at the time I entered the industry, there were medium and large-scale manufacturing companies that were employing around 25,000 employees. And one of the greatest things is, in mass production, you do not need to know, or the employee does not need to assemble a whole garment. It's just a little operation. Within 6 months, we make specialists out of someone who had no idea how to stitch a garment. The only thing is that one has to be that intelligent to understand direction on how to use equipment. And this is an industry that requires comparatively less capital investment. I mean, this is for those considering investing in this industry. Our government already has factories that have been built, that are well equipped for operation, and yours is to invest in equipment. And we heard from the Exim Bank that there is funding available. It's competitive, but probably not that competitive on the international arena. But then this is why we talk partnerships. This is an industry that's dominated by Asian countries as listed. These countries are low-income countries with same challenges as most developing countries, even though we know Ghana is now not a developing country. But we have similar challenges, and they have been able to access the close to $3 trillion market that is available to all of us. Women's wear, for instance, is valued at over $402 billion. And this is an industry that's estimated to grow at 15% annually. I started with one sewing machine in 1979, my mother's, and today we own an over 300 machine factory, as you saw in the photo. I started in niche markets to export in 1994 to Pier 1 imports, as I've mentioned. And then, after we got the AGUA visa, and proudly, I was on the National Implementation Committee that worked to get Ghana the AGOA visa, which allows us to export over 6,000 products. So it's not just the clothing, it's processed foods, it's so many other avenues for us to export into the US. And it doesn't take too much. You work into it, but definitely you need to be that well established for the international arena. These are photos of some of my designs which I showcased in Paris and Dusseldorf. These are both hand-woven and machine-woven kente. Once upon a time, we had a textile mill that experimented with machine-woven kente. We need to revive these mills, and we need investors to consider coming through. We all know what is happening on the global arena. African design, some may call it ethnic, but African fabrics are making global impact. Currently in Ghana, there's an investor in partnership with a local garment manufacturer who started off about a year ago, shipping just about 1 container a month. Now they're shipping about 5 container loads of clothing every week. That is the demand on the market. I recently visited the US, spent time with some buyers, and discovered that, for very basic clothing, like the hoodies, the joggers, they're very popular all over the world. The least order is for 500,000 pieces of garments. And it doesn't take too much of a skill to assemble this, because as I said, every operator just needs to do a little bit of it. And by the time you've run down a machine line of, let's say, 33 machinists, you've assembled a great garment. And Ghanaian youth are not difficult to train. There's the creativity. It's a natural thing with the Ghanaian. For those of us who have visited our Oxford Street, we also have an Oxford Street. Although maybe we need to get a bit more original, but it's nice. You see all these beautiful garments, and people love them. And amazingly, there is one design that started making the rounds on social media from a designer. I'm not going to mention her name, but she's British. She's UK. And she sells that outfit for not less than £1,000. But you could actually purchase that for maybe £5 on Oxford Street, but beautifully made, beautifully made. Why can't we build this into something bigger? We can, and we're doing it, and we're inviting you to be a part of it. Ghana has duty and quota access to the following markets, under the EPA, and we're already exporting in total 55% of our products into those markets. The ECOWAS Free Trade Agreement allows us 15%. AGOA, as I've mentioned, allows us 25%. And we've been talking the Continental Trade Agreement that allows access to a huge market that is already exporting all kinds of, it's not just the clothing, but sewable items like bed linen, like towels. We make bags at our factory, storage bags and everything else. And the industry, as I've already said, is estimated to grow at 15% per annum. Investor interest in Cambodia was because of the success of its garment and textile industry. And we are saying that this exists for Ghana. There are avenues for such businesses as real estate, housing, affordable housing. I once saw on CNN there was a Nigerian architect who's come up with an idea of building within a short time strong structures for housing for workers. There's passenger transportation. You should see at the end of each day the hundreds and thousands that rush to get on buses in and out of home. That's an avenue for business. There's food to feed workers. There's the haulage, freight and forwarding haulage. We have containers coming in and out all the time. There's the courier services because samples have to be carried backwards and forwards. And of course, online shops. It's a big thing now. We all love to sit in our living room in the comforts of our home and shop, especially for us women. And happily, this is an industry that is patronized more by women, right? Generates more jobs for women. Now, there are challenges like in every other business. There's the high cost of energy, but I say every challenge is an opportunity to develop a business. We're talking renewable energy. Ghana is ripe for this. Sleek Garments Export Limited, we are exploring using solar to light up our factories, because factories need a lot of lighting, so workers can help pick out faults and flaws in the garments that we produce for export. There's the development of human resource. My brother mentioned about education. You can set up establishments to develop skills. There's dependence currently on imported fabrics and sewing accessories, but you can establish fabric mills that will also supply the neighboring West African countries. There's an influx of used clothing for sale on domestic markets, which we complain about because it actually at a point in time did cause the decline of our sector. But then it tells us that there's a high demand for affordable clothing for these young ones who are actually stitching all these shirts. And you can get into the market and we can make clothes more competitive, at more competitive prices. Now we're looking for investment partnerships for all these reasons. And we are open to business, to ideas, to talk about this. I mentioned already the AGOA. I mentioned that government has built the factories. There's financial support for vocational and skills development institutions. Of course, the agencies have spoken. The CEO spoke yesterday. They have been funding trade shows and access to markets. We have government looking at developing effective policies. You know, we have a listening government. There are the tax incentives from free zones. That's very important. More of interventions by government to support the sector. So where to begin? Visit Ghana with an open mind. As we say back home, travel and see for yourselves. There's the opportunity to well-equipped clothing factories and to talk to entrepreneurs, enthusiastic ones like myself, and we are very optimistic because we have seen the markets. We've traveled widely. We know what the markets want. We know Ghana can produce it at even better quality. My buyers attest to the fact that we send better quality than they're getting from most of their suppliers. There's access to market opportunities, the whole of Africa. It's a huge market. What results can you expect? Access to over $160 billion markets, duty and quota-free in the US, the UK, and of course, Africa. There's available production capacity. I've heard some designers talk about the challenge of mass producing their designs. We produce for other designers. There's a young, dynamic labor force. They are glad to walk in each day and have a job that gives them income at the end of the month. There's high profit niche markets as well. And as a creative people in Ghana, we can help you develop your creative ideas. I've mentioned the buzz about the designers whose clothing in African prints are priced over £1,000. These are contact details for you. My operations director is sitting out there, Natasha, and we are happy to speak to you at the end of this program. Thank you all for your kind attention.
Good afternoon and welcome to ABN TV, Nora.
Good afternoon.
Right, now, can you please tell us a bit about who Nora Bannerman is?
Okay, so Nora Bannerman is a fashion designer and an industrialist. Now, I'm a fashion designer, creating designs in clothing, accessories, and all kinds of things. An industrialist because I own an over 300 machine factory back in Ghana. And I've been in this industry for 4 decades as the textile and clothing industry. And I was one of the speakers at the just ended Ghana Investment Summit.
So as one of the speakers, what was your expectation of this summit?
Well, I came here looking for partnerships. You know, I've been in the business, as I said, for 4 decades. We've accessed the US markets, markets in Africa, even markets in Europe. But then, as we look at expanding, there are certain considerations. For instance, the cost of finance is much higher in Ghana, where I've established my business, whereas the cost of labor is cheaper. There are also big markets in Africa. There are even bigger markets in the US and in Europe. And the buyers are better organized for now, for business, than we are in Africa. So I'm looking for access to other markets apart from what I have now, because it's a very highly competitive industry. And I'm also looking for partnerships because of cost of finance. An example of a partnership would be one that can invest in the fabrics, and we do the manufacturing, and we ship out, whether to the UK or the US, quota and duty free.
So going out of this summit, what would you take home from this event?
Well, there's been a lot of networking. It's exciting to see so many gather at such a summit. It's about investment in Ghana. And for some of us who believe in what we have, that Ghana is sitting on a gold mine, it attests what we believe in, that people know their opportunities. They probably just need to be pointed in right direction. They need to know that the support is there. Support is not like handouts, but at least to be guided through the system. And countries are now being run like businesses to attract investment. So you need to do the same way as you would in private enterprise. Give direction, show the support, point investors in the right, direction, and assure them that the rule of law does exist, so the investments will always be protected, and everything else that it takes to get us going.